What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. On today's video, we're going to talk about hooking up two AC units on this house. So the reason why there's two is because of the way the house is laid out. I didn't want hot and cold spots. You see people spend all this money on these big houses and try to do one furnace, one AC, and you end up having a very hot second floor and a very cold first floor. So I've experienced it in my past, and I didn't want to deal with it. Part of our deal with Triangle Air is they set all the units, they did all the ductwork, furnaces, everything like that. They did a great job on everything. They put the disconnect boxes up and then I have to wire to them. So Chico's not available today. I'm gonna dive into this myself. I had a ton of extra wire left over, so I'm gonna show you how I'm using one Keller wire for both units. We'll identify it with Keller tape. That's how we're doing it here. So I suggest to do your own due diligence, make sure it's okay with your code in your area. But as long as it's 10-2 wire, 10 gauge wire, and you wire it up with the ground, 2 hots, and 2 separate 30 amp breakers, you should be good. So I'm gonna flip the camera around. I'm gonna show you the first thing, the most important thing you do whenever you're doing something like this. So our house is a little different. Currently, this is all live, so if you touch that, you would get shocked. So we did a 200 amp sub panel / meter socket box. It was something Chico found online. We thought it'd be a great idea because eventually we're gonna put a Generac system in here, and I have 220 running over to that barn. This goes down over to the barn. Right now it's just running LED lighting, so nothing major. So the first thing I suggest doing in a situation like this is get a tester. This is all hot. So I'm gonna throw the master breaker going to the house, so it just makes it safe. Do I feel confident to work in this box hot? Yes, but you're better off being safe than sorry. There's no sense taking a chance. Everything's currently dead. This is off. So what we're gonna do is run 3/4 conduit down, over, jump up into this disconnect. And then from this disconnect, we're gonna jump from that disconnect over to that one, and we're gonna run 1/2-inch conduit. So there'll be a total of 6 wires going into this one. Then we'll drop 3. So then in this box, we'll have 2 hots and a ground. And then we'll hook them up into there, and then I'll continue going across there. So I got these knockouts already loose. You just knock them out with a hammer and a punch, and make sure you don't take too much out, because then you have to put one of those filler, gauge things in there. So this is for 1/2 inch, and then we're gonna come across to this one. And like I said, I got this one loose too, so that's why they're coming out so easy. If you ever worked with these before, they do not come out as easy as that. But we'll get these male adapters in here, start working this conduit backwards, and then we'll run it all through here. We'll get a shop vac or a fish tape, suck a string through, pull some wires, identify them, and then I'll show you how to hook it all up. So I got the 1/2 inch male adapter in on that side. We're gonna put another one on this side. It's just as easy as screwing it in there. Okay, it's nice and tight. The reason why I went with 1/2 inch on this is because of the clearance coming across these ribs. It's actually gonna work out perfect. I didn't want 3/4 and it bulging out. Eventually I might paint this at a later date, but for right now, Triangle Air needs this all fired up so they can come out and do a test on the whole equipment, because next week it's supposed to be over about 70 degrees and they need it warm to test the equipment out. Now that I got that 2 male adapters in here, we're gonna do a measurement in between these two, and it's 45 inches. So I'm gonna cut a 45-inch piece, and what's nice about plastic is I'm hoping there's enough flex to flex this in between the two, so I don't have to take one of these off. Originally thought about doing it in like metal conduit, then that make it real rigid. So I'm gonna try to flex this in between the two. It should work. All right, get this all in place here. So just like that, guys, I was able to flex it into place. Could put a level on it, but I know it's going to be pretty close. Spot on. So I was here whenever Triangle Ware set these, and they know how particular I am, and they are too. Everything they did was real nice, neat and clean. Super professional company. So if you're not familiar with them, check them out. I'll leave their stuff down in the description and that. So now we're going to keep moving this 3/4 all the way across there. So now that we have that piece in, I got the 3/4 inch male adapter. I'm going to go down. It's just going to miss that line set. We're going to go underground with all 3/4 inch conduit, and then I'm going to come up in this area. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to come up in this area, but you know, the famous saying, it takes time to do things right. So I'm trying to get this so the next project I have, I'm not going to be, you know, messing with wires in the way. So I'm going to try to come up through here, tuck all this stuff. I'm going to put those 2 breakers right on this side and feed it, and then I'll identify them, which one's which. So now we'll get that 3/4 inch male adapter up in there, and I'll start running this stuff. So this is what it looks like with the 3/4 conduit. Comes down, offsets. Unfortunately, I didn't have any 45s. I wanted to come out and like offset 45 around. There wasn't enough room to go behind that 3-inch conduit for the main service coming in. So this being a short run, I do believe that I'll be able to pull all this without any issues. If Chico was here, he'd be tearing into me right now because he hates whenever I use 90s. But we're going from there to there to there, dropping off 3 and then continuing over to there. So I'm going to show you what I was talking about, identifying wire. I believe we're going to be using black and white. So black, white, and green. So we'll just color code it so we know which one's which. So we're trying to get a dummy piece through here first. And believe it or not, it worked. So we're gonna use this as a tow. I'm gonna hook them 6 wires onto here. I'm gonna string them out. I'm gonna feed them through, tow them into here, then tow them across there. So that's really rare that I was able to push. This is 10 gauge solid wire, so it's a little bit more rigid. But normally you have to use like a shop vac and suck a string through or whatever. So this small of a run, you're probably talking like a total of maybe 7 feet total length. So pretty pleased about that because that just saved me from going to get a shop vac and stuff. So I'm going to get these wires laid out, identified, and then we'll pull some through. So we got this all hooked up. You can see I'm towing all these wires through here. And like I said, this is all dead. I have it killed from here down. And it wouldn't be nice to have an extra set of hands doing this, but we're going to make do with what we got. Okay, so we have it over here, and I went real long with it, so we're going to separate this out now, just enough on that ground. So let's explain this real quick so you understand what's going on. So this is 240 volt system, 110, 110, so these are double pull breakers, which makes 240. So each leg is 120 volt. So what I did is identified these 2 10 gauge wires, marked them blue. We're gonna put them on a blue breaker, and it's gonna go to this AC unit. And I put blue tape in here, blue here, mark these blue. So it identifies what these for, what exactly this unit is powering up. So this being, these are both hot in a ground. So these are wired similar to a hot water tank. I didn't know that. I had to ask Chico because I've never wired anything like this before. So that's what makes it a little bit easier to identify this way. So the 2 whites, got them marked red on the breaker. And then what happened is I pulled them through, and like we talked about, I stopped these ones here. I'll wire all this in here. And then you can see there's 2 hots in a ground going through that 1/2 inch conduit over to this AC unit. So I have them identified as red in there. So 2 hots, red, a ground identified in a box, and then it's all just gets hooked onto here, 2 hots on each side. These are already pre-wired from the manufacturer, so this is red's hot and black's hot. On regular 120 volt, black is hot, white is normally neutral. So that's why you got to understand electricity when you start getting it up into the higher volts. I am not a licensed electrician, so I say do your own due diligence and research, but I know enough to be dangerous. So we're gonna get this hooked up, and I'll show one more time before we close these boxes up. All right, so we got everything wired up like we talked about, identifying everything, zip tied some stuff in there. This crosses over here, so that's the load side, line side, and then the way that disconnect goes in there, one way is live, the other way it's off. So same thing with this one over here. So we got everything wired up like we talked about. Everything's color coded, and I got the power back on. So now you can see I got live feeds over all these. So everything now from this main breaker is back on. Now we're dealing with live power. So 120 volt, 120 volt, you touch both of those, that's 240. That's funeral arrangements, guys. So you gotta be really careful when you're dealing with this kind of voltage. So this right here, I got the breakers on to here, but the disconnects are off. See how if you rotate it, so I can't turn any power onto these units because I don't know if they have the refrigerant charged or whatnot. They just asked me to get power to there. This is off, so if you pull this out, flip it 180 degrees, plug it back in, that gets you power to these units. So now I'm gonna put all these safety covers back on, button this up, and this project's complete. Got everything there buttoned up. It's all secure. We got power to these disconnects, so now they're ready for a startup here. I'll give Triangle Air a call. These are Lennox equipment. I believe it's 17 SEER, so it's not the most energy efficient stuff they make, but it's pretty high up there. That's a wrap on this video, guys. I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. And like always, we appreciate you watching. I want to thank Triangle Air for giving me a great product, great service. And like always, we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.